I've been playing bass since the late 80s, when my father bought me one from the local music store. I've owned numerous basses over the years, but one night around 15 years ago, I watched Mo Pleasure play bass for Earth, Wind & Fire, and my love for the jazz bass was born. This is my new Fender Ultra Jazz bass. It is quite simply the best looking bass I've ever owned. Depending on the light, the Texas T changes colour, ranging from dark green to a sparkly gold. I've had this bass nearly 2 weeks now. As the neck profile is somewhat flatter than what I'm used to, I'm now finally starting to feel comfortable with this. My other two basses have 7¼ and 9½ inch radius necks, so playing a bass with a compound 10 to 14 inch radius has been quite an adjustment. I played with the Fender strings that came with the bass for the first week or so. I never felt comfortable playing them, so I swapped them out with my favourite brand. I installed a bass extender and tightened up the tuners, as I like them to be quite stiff so they don't get knocked out of tune too easily. While the anodized pickguard shows markings after playing, these rub off easily. On to the negatives. The binding in places goes over the frets. When adjusting the intonation, I noticed at times I had to push the saddles to get them to move towards the neck. Incidentally, I have to do the same thing on my Marcus Miller Jazz, but not my Sire P7. One thing that's really annoyed me is that there's a significant gap between the input jack and the body. When gigging, I generally like to play in active mode, roll off some mids and highs and slightly boost the bass. I do this to soften the tone slightly, while still allowing the bass to cut through the mix. I do wish the tone control worked in active mode though. What's up with that? Overall, this bass sounds great and looks absolutely stunning. I'm still working on how I want the action set up. One thing's for sure though, it's definitely a keeper.